It's an act of violence when we make women invisible, to exclude them, to make them or to make us disappear. And that happens when our work is not valued, when we are not paid for the work that we do, when the only images we see of women and girls are one-dimensional, when we don't have representatives in public office. We're here today to make sure that that does not continue to happen by looking at the conversations today and making sure that we take action. So it's going to be, as Marilyn said, a little bit of an experiment in how we do the 8 conversations. You might think of it as speed dating. What piques your interest? But we want to make sure that we get the issue out there, who's working, because as she said, we have the data, then what are we going to do about it? Another way to look at it is, it's kind of like flying without a net, but there is a net, all of you. And we're all here to support each other and make sure that, if something's missing, we're there to make sure that it gets put back in.
Saying it yourself and not having it filtered, I think, is the greatest source of rage right now in our society. I really don't think people hate politicians. I think that they hate the fact that they never get to say it themselves, like I'm getting to do right now. I'm just loving this.
Some of the obvious access requirements to allow full inclusion for women with disabilities include sign language interpreters, which is often a sticking point because it's a service that costs money, but it also is the legal right and human right, which is sort of my personal focus at this conference today. Some things that are less obvious but critical for women with particular disabilities are materials in alternative formats like Braille or large print, assistive listening devices for women who are hard of hearing. Ideally, women who have an environmental illness would have a place where it was scent-free, where there wasn't smoke, where they could know that I could be there and be safe from environmental hazards.
When I say right information, I'm talking about popular education. And we need to have the right information to take action.
Public education, that's correct. And that's the most important solution, because what she's talking about is the water. It's not just in Fresno and Central Valley. And actually now, because of the groundwater disappearing and the more straws going into the ground is actually sinking at about a foot a month. Water is the new gold. The system that was put into place in the 1850s was not sustainable, and we've reached the end of that sustainability. The North is not keeping water from the South. The North is out of water. And these are issues Indigenous people, as Patty Chang said, have been addressing since 1995 and even previous. They were actually voicing their concerns in the 1850s when the system was being put in place.
Hello, my name is Sabine Talogan, and I work for the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health. We are the policy advocacy arm of urban Indian health centers throughout California. We also provide training and technical assistance. So that's very specific to healthcare, but with the topic that earth, air, water, and fire, I think that I'm kind of just speaking and generally about Indigenous people. As Indigenous people, it is our responsibility to remind ourselves and others about their relationship and connections to land. Colonization taught us that land could be owned, used, and disregarded, and these words are very similar to abuse that people treat each other with. Land is permanent. It holds everything: food, ecology, history. It's no coincidence that in language we use the term grounded to mean understanding, balanced, and modest. Healing our connections with land is required to heal our relationships with our own bodies. Land and our bodies and our communities are all symbiotically related. We have to look at the state of the trees, the soil, the air, the water, as a reflection of ourselves and our priorities. In order to create safe communities, we have to see the historical and intergenerational trauma in addition to the lived trauma in ourselves and in each other. We have to be inclusive of the people that have hurt us and the people who have power to. We have to connect to land as the keeper of stories, and we have to be vessels for those stories and tell them. We have to build communities grounded in interdependence, balance, and wholeness, and we must do this by healing our relationships to land.
I come from the Klamath River, which is right in the middle of U.S. jurisdiction between Mexico and Canada. And we have the Fraser River, we have the Olympia River, we have Sacramento River, but Klamath lives in the middle of it. And so Southern California wants the water from the Trinity River. 20 years ago, Chief Orline said, we talk about living and doing things for the seventh generation. 10 years ago, he said, we are the seventh generation. If we don't save it, we won't have anything to give to the seventh generation. We need to be very, very vigilant.